With one of the highest debt to GDP of all countries, go cities, no productivity growth, copyright zombies, China might be in trouble. Today I'm going to explain to you which economic problems China is facing, so let's go. Hey guys, hope you're doing great. Welcome to EconTube, the channel for people who are fascinated about economy like myself. If you're also one of them, remember to subscribe for more economic related content. That said, let's begin talking about the whole situation concerning the economy of China. And herein we're starting in 2008. So in 2008, as you probably know, we had a financial crisis in the world. Several countries' economy were badly hit, including China's. To understand why, then the economic growth in China has in decades originated from low-cost export. And then when the crisis came, people, companies and government all over the world cut their spending, which obviously led to lower demand for goods and services from China. By that, the Chinese companies weren't earning anything, so instead they cut their expenditures by firing workers to keep businesses running. Just after the crash, 23 million workers lost their job, considering the Chinese export decreased with 10 to 20%. When something like this happens quickly to an economy, then someone usually has to act. And who was that someone? Well, the government, of course. They implemented a $600 billion stimulus program with the purpose of saving the economy. This program plays a key factor of what we'll talk about today. Is it because it didn't do anything good for the economy? No, it actually stabilized the economy, and with no time the economy was back on track. However, it has something to do with the handling of the problem. You can generally manage the problem in two ways. Do it in the short term or in the long term. The easiest way to get an economy going is by doing it in the short term. Here you can just borrow a lot of money and then use them on investments such as buildings. To be more precisely, let's say you want to build the tallest skyscraper in the world, and to build such a building you will need a lot of materials. This will for instance cause that the demand for concrete will increase. This will be good for the concrete companies since they will earn more money, and with that they can expand and grow. Similarly, you will also need a lot of labor. This means that the unemployed people will suddenly have a job to build this skyscraper, and by doing this they will in exchange receive wages. With more money in the pocket, these people will probably increase their spending. This will furthermore lead to a higher demand for goods and services, so companies have to produce more. All of this creates wealth in the society and is thereby good for the GDP, but it's only good in the short term, because if you keep building new constructions just to get a high GDP growth, then eventually there will be no use of the buildings. They will just be empty, and on the long term the investments have been wasted. When an investment is wasted, then it's called a malinvestment. This is exactly what many investments in China are now considered as. There are nowadays so many ghost cities in China on behalf of creating short-term prosperity. What's more, the investments are in most cases financed by debt. In a way, it's basically like the government of China is addicted to showing off the high GDP growth, even though it's unhealthy for the economy. Personally, I don't see that as the reason, so what is the real reason why the government is investing in buildings that will most likely become empty and useless? The reason comes from the fact that since China is in a way a command economy, then there are a portion of so-called state-owned enterprises, or in other words companies that are owned by the government. These SOEs have a lot of advantages, because firstly they are protected by the government against foreign and domestic competition, and furthermore they have cheap financing from government-owned banks. The sectors these companies are in vary from the tobacco industry to the life insurance industry. However, a part of them are also supply of steel, aluminum and other industrial enterprises, which are moreover materials that constructions are made of. This is important because when you are government owned, you usually have a slice of political influence. So back in 2008, when the financial stimulus program was introduced, then the reason why a lot of the money went into construction and infrastructure was because then these SOEs could keep the profit flowing. It was for pure self-interest, not particularly for the national interest. The same thing is going on today with all of these ghost cities. They still just want to gain profit from the help of the government. Also, according to the Scave Calendar Economics, a Beijing-based economic consulting firm, today state companies get almost 30% of all loans in China, but contribute less than a tenth of the nation's GDP. Currently, just the SOE debt is also standing at 115% of the GDP, and this number is still increasing. This is basically the reason why so many of the SOEs are called copyright zombies. When that is said, I'm not even finished with the worst things yet, because when you look at the key indicator total factor productivity, which stands for the extra output that an economy produces without additional labor or capital, or it's basically what creates long-term prosperity in a society, then you can see that the country is currently experiencing the lowest productivity growth in a long time. And this is according to experts primarily due to investing in the wrong things. To be more precisely, if the government in 2008 instead invested a larger portion of its money in the private sector, then it would most likely have been a much better investment in the long term of the national economy. On the other hand, China is not close to an economic meltdown. They only have a little overseas debt and high national savings rate, but they still have to do something with these small investments and the copyright zombies. The Chinese President Xi Jinping signaled on the 19th Communist Party Congress that the economy of China in the upcoming years will work towards becoming an open economy with new reforms. This means, for instance, that it will make it easier for foreign investors to invest in the private sector in China, which is good because it's there where the economy will most likely grow. In terms of the SOEs, he will not let the zombies die. Instead, he will try to strengthen them with new reforms. For the time being, we don't know anything about these reforms, but we know for a fact that they are critical for the economy. Therefore, I would like to ask you what changes are necessary to be made for the economy. Let me know down in the comments below. When that is said, thank you so much for watching this video. Leave a like or dislike whether you like this video or not. A subscribe could also be awesome if you can supply one since I demand it. Anyway, see you next time.